Hey guys, Ponce here on the PBE. Here talking about Taliyah a bit since she is slated to go live. I'm not sure if it's tomorrow specifically, but she goes live sometime after patch 6.10 goes live. So either tomorrow or sometime within the next week. You know, probably sooner rather than later across the globe on all the various live servers. I figured I'd talk about a little bit about her, my experiences with her, sort of a crash course, as it were. You know, if you're intent on playing her right away. Just sort of my thoughts, builds, you know, her role, problems she has, stuff like that. Anyway, so just to get the absolute basics out of the way, runes and masteries. I don't like this topic very much, but, you know, I go sort of a fairly standard 12, 18, 0 on her, simply because, what's it called? Thunderlord is just so good on her. Her combo mage nature just allows the proc to go off very often. If you're hitting someone, you tend to hit them in a large volley of spells. I mean, she literally has a volley, threaded volley, like that. So, yeah, that's that. In terms of runes, I don't really like talking about runes. They're a boring topic to me. Just use your standard mage runes. Whatever you normally use, it's going to work. It'll be fine. Just stick with what you know in terms of mages. Do it, and, you know, whatever. Now, in terms of, I was going to talk about build, but then I realized your build actually changes a little bit depending on her role, so let's talk about her role first. She's actually designed to be a mid laner, according to the developers. I was watching like a official Riot stream. I actually found that she seems to be a better support than anything, for a couple of reasons. Simply because I don't know. Well, maybe not for a couple of reasons. I should probably preface this by saying the public test realm, despite its name, is actually a really poor testing ground because skill levels tend to be all over the place. Now, granted, I did play a lot of games as support, but just consistently, I don't know. She just seemed to work really well. I have the most success with her there in general. She seemed to function as a very good sort of poke mage, like or poke support. Sort of like in the vein of, you know, Vel'Koz and, you know, Lulu and stuff, who can deal good damage at a range just with the threaded volley. So you're just constantly nailing people with this thing. And, you know, she has some, you know, CC, you know, combo potential with stuff like that. Can kind of knock people around. You know, relatively effective at dissuading engagements with the Unraveled Earth, the E. Now, the weakness is that there's so much AoE you could, you know, accidentally sort of push up the wave and you know, destroy minions or kill minions and prevent your AD carry from getting CS and stuff. So in that sense, people could just hide behind the minion wave, but I found people just weren't doing that very often, and I was able to pick my spots quite well. So I don't know if people learn how to deal with that and just stop getting hit by said poke for free. You might run into some problems, but I never did. So, you know, we'll see how that ultimately pans out. But then again, a lot of sort of poke supports and just supports in general do have that issue. You can just hide behind minion waves, and that's a lot of it's prevented. Not even just poke mages, but things like Blitzcrank, you hide behind the minion wave. That's how you deal with it. You know, if you're faced with Thresh, you can avoid this hook by hiding behind minions. Vel'Koz, same deal. Support Vel'Koz, stuff like that. He can't really hit you if you hide behind minions because he'll push the wave up, etc., etc. In terms of mid, she's okay. I didn't find her terribly awful. The main problem I was running into, she's really easy to counterpick. If you suspect a counterpick at all, or the possibility of a counterpick, I would not pick her early. Simply because all anyone has to do is pick a blink type assassin, so your Fizz, your Zed, Talon, stuff like that, stuff that just jumps on you and deals crazy amounts of burst damage and gets the hell out. They will destroy you before you have any option of, like, you know, you retaliating with seismic shove and, you know, stuff like that. If you're really good and really fast and just are better than them, yes, you can knock them away and prevent, you know, deal enough damage back to them before they can get on you and stuff like that. But the matchup is the three matchups specific. Actually, I didn't do Talon. I never ran into a Talon, but I'm just kind of imagining it would be bad as well. But Fizz and Zed specific were just such horrible matchups that, you know, I haven't actually run into matchups that bad in a while. You know, I'm not saying it's unwinnable. For example, I did beat a couple of people doing the counter pick on the PBE. You know, a number of times I did it. So you know, it is possible. Anything's possible in League of Legends. But granted, or not granted. assuming skill levels even remotely equal, they're going to beat you. So it's a difficult thing there. And no, she's not the only champion
I
that
know
suffers from
all
that.
of
I
this
know
will lead me
assassins
home
can do some pretty
someday.
crazy stuff to immobile mages a lot, but it seems particularly bad with her. Um, the other problem with her is that she's not like a crazy hyper carry mega damage sort of mage. A lot of it's sacrificed for the sake of control. Like she's got a control mage, which in my mind doubles for the term utility mage, which is why I had the idea of taking her support. Well, not the I suppose not the reason I took her support, but it tells me, he's going to be a fairly effective support. So, obviously for the sake of utility and control and CC and stuff like that, you're sacrificing damage. And how do you hard carry games? Ultimately, it comes down to damage. The person or the champion that can kind of do it all themselves. They can start the fight and then finish the fight with their damage, as opposed to sort of counting for follow-up or, longer engagement, stuff like that. So, here's the thing. Like, it's a difficult thing to sort of assess simply because every champion type has its place in League of Legends. You do need variety, so you do need stuff like control mages to sort of add variety to the game and fill very specific niches. Not everyone can be a hyper carry, because that would just kind of be boring. You just have 5 Master Yis all running into each other, over and over again, or 10 Master Yis or whatever. So I mean, the character certainly has her place, and you can carry with her. She is good. It's just it sort of goes against, I suppose, my personal philosophy that you just bring damage to the table, and that's the fastest, easiest way to carry in the game and sort of win more games than you lose. But, she's good, and I don't want to be too down on it. But that's sort of, I suppose, yeah, again, why I'm a bit hesitant to take her mid when support is an option. Which is a bit odd when you think about it, simply because support is probably the hardest role to carry from the game from. But anyway, moving on. Let's talk about build a little bit. Actually, when I was playing my support builds and my mid lane builds, actually were fairly similar. The main difference being that as support I started with the Frost Queen's Claim, or not Frost Queen, the Frost. Spell Thief's Edge, and then move my way up to Frost Queen's Claim. Typically building that fairly early on. It's actually a very useful item with her, especially for setting up her whole combo. Someone CC'd, it's very difficult to avoid. Much sort of like how Morgana would use a Frost Queen's Claim to slow people down, and then she would root them, kind of thing. But aside from that, I was finding that that's not true. I was about to say they were I was saying the builds are very similar. The other difference is mid lane I would rush Rod of Aegis. That item was just too important. It gave her, she doesn't have huge mana problems, but one mana-ish item I felt like sort of allowed her to, so long as you were somewhat careful with mana, to more or less use spells with impunity. You can't spam forever, obviously, but so long as you use spells judiciously and don't miss too many things. Rod of Aegis I found is enough for mana, not sustain, but your mana pool. Excuse me, one sec. All right, not sure what that was, but the ability power was nice, and you do need some survivability with this character, I feel. Going in Glass Cannon, I didn't find it was effective at all. Like, you do need some MP, or not MP, AP, but like really overdoing it and going Glass Cannon super ham with the AP. She never dealt stupid amounts of damage, or no matter what you did, so I felt kind of this middling sort of build helped. Now, if I were to say one item was core between the two, it would be Riley's Crystal Scepter. Riley's Crystal Scepter is extremely important on this champion, at least by, in my experience. It was actually so important that I was actually tempted to get it before Rod of Aegis. I never actually ended up testing this. I should have, but whenever I get Rod of Aegis on a champion, I'm extremely hesitant to build it later in the build, simply because you don't have the time to build up the stacks. Games in your pub stompy solo queue kind of situation, they don't tend to last that long anyway. So I really want to get the Rod of Aegis stacks going ASAP. And getting Riley's Crystal Scepter first, it's an expensive item. It takes a while, so you kind of get what's going on there. But the reason I was even considering this is simply because Riley's Crystal Scepter, I was noticing a huge power spike on the champion. as soon as you got it. You know, aside from the sort of the some tankiness I was talking about that you need, it gives a good amount of AP, and the kite potential on this is really good. You just kind of like dance around people with constant volleys of, well, threaded volley, and you're just constantly slowing them. It's really easy to set up your combo, and people, you do need to kite with this champion. Like, she just can't sit there and expect to out trade people in this, you know, head-to-head, you know, dick waving contest or whatever. So, you know, despite her damage being okay, people will outburst you. So it's just kind of long, drawn-out fights where you're fighting backwards. And a lot of the time using, it makes you a lot less reliant on using the threaded ground bonus movement speed. So, there you have it there. And then after that, I was fairly situational in terms of what I build. Sometimes, yeah, I would need more damage, and like, okay, I'm going to get Luden's Echo or Abaddon's Death Cap, or sometimes Hourglass, you know, if that was necessary. Sometimes I even got Leandri's Torment. It wasn't a bad item. It's situational, though, because some games the enemy's super squishy, and you actually do have enough burst to kill people relatively quickly, and there's, you know, not too much, you know, opportunities to just kind of spell burn people down. Granted, Leandri's Torment does give a good, you know, decent amount of MP, or not MP, AP, and, you know, the penetration is always nice, but it wasn't like an every game sort of thing, in my experience. Aside from that, so we covered lane matchups, builds, and stuff like that. Oh yeah, in terms of the mechanics of her spells, you know, the obvious combo is you throw out your E, and then you know, knock people into the whole thing for the extra damage, and then you start shooting them, or, you know, whatever. Especially in chat when I was live streaming, I'm getting a lot of people talking. They were trying to tell me, like, you know, you can combo them with your EEW, right? And, you know, like, I should always be doing it. The thing is, you don't always, you know, want to EW combo. The reason sometimes that I wouldn't be doing it is, especially as kind of as a sport, where my damage wasn't, you know, quite as high. A lot of the time, if you run up to someone and then E them,
Nothing ventured, nothing learned.
You know, it should be obvious that you're trying to knock them into you anyway, but it does give people a little bit of extra time to react. You know, you have to do that animation, you know, et cetera, and that, you know, extra, you know, 0.5 to 1 second that you aren't casting the knockback into them gives them. It's like it's telegraphing your movements. It's almost like throwing like a big right haymaker before your jab, kind of thing. Like, you know. You're making it obvious that you're about to do some kind of attack, and a lot of the time all you really need to do is just use Seismic Wave to push people into you immediately. Like, if all you need is the CC and your team is there for follow-up damage and you're just trying to start the fight, it isn't necessary to absolutely maximize your damage. Sometimes you do need to maximize your damage because, you know, your damage is important. So, you know, it's a very it's an important thing to learn when to do the combo and when all you need is just to pull them in like that. Now, so long as we're talking about Seismic Shove, this move is a little bit on the, like, it's not super clunky, but it's like, it's kind of like vector targeting, or is vector targeting. A lot like Rumbles are, where basically you put it down, and then you click and then drag, and then you let go. And then it'll go in that direction.
I must finish my
or rather, the knock-up will go in that direction. If you just click it, people just go straight up, like this. See, notice I hadn't clicked again, and I was still, the arrow thing was spinning around the thing, but, or the targeting zone or reticule or whatever, but because I didn't actually select a direction, it's not like it's going to shoot in the direction when the timer expired, the channel expired. You have to actually commit and click, and then, like, so what I'm gonna do, it's a bit difficult to explain, you know, since I'm the one doing it. But basically, to go through it by step, you click the or I have it on SmartCast. I don't know how it works with normal cast, but you click the spell, then drag, and then then click down with your mouse, and then drag it in the direction you want to knock them up, and then you let go of the mouse.
It is up to all of us to see beauty.
So there you have it. It's not super difficult. I've just found it sometimes a bit clunky, and sometimes it doesn't seem to knock up in the direction you want to, and I'm assuming that's user error, but it's something to note. especially in the this heat of battle kind of thing. I've also heard a couple people in chat, so I don't know how common the sentiment is, but I suppose it bears mentioning that some people have said she feels clunky or looks clunky. I don't think she's super clunky. It's a bit weird, and yeah, I can see where the clunky message or idea is coming from, but once you get used to it, it's not too bad. It's just kind of a strange kit. It's familiar enough that it's just kind of off compared to a lot of things you've probably played, but, once you get the hang of it, it's smooth enough that it sort of makes sense in its own right. The other thing is the threaded volley timing is a bit... notice there's a weird rhythm to it. It's like doom, 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 doom. Like, it's not like a consistent shot pattern. Once you get used to that, you can kind of account for it. But when you first start using it, yeah, it's not like... The way it's channeled is it's basically the same as the Lucian ult. You stay stationary in terms of the direction, but it's not a constant stream of Lucian shots. Like, do, 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 do. It's like, do, 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 do. It's like, it's a staggered shot. So yeah, something to note. The ult can be a bit hard to use under pressure, I suppose, if you're trying to look where you're going. Sometimes you'll accidentally cancel it and stuff, but yeah, you need to click it, then click again while it's channeling, and then if you don't want to go the full distance, just click off. But don't make sure you don't accidentally click off on the map somewhere if you want to go the full distance. And if you want to get rid of it early, just press again. Or the terrain you create. Now, I suppose the final topic we have to cover here is general power balance and how she feels. I feel like she's actually probably one of the more, if not the most balanced new champion to be released in a while. It's either kind of seems like champions are kind of garbage or like way too strong at release, generally speaking. This champion, oddly enough, is just like very, very average, sort of middle of the pack in terms of power, I feel. At least in terms of like solo queue stuff. I don't want to talk about organized play. That's a whole different topic. I know someone always has to bring up, LCS or some, goddamn professional league. Don't worry about that. What those people do has nothing to do with me or you or any of us. Yeah, she's just like, she doesn't do crazy amounts of damage, has good amounts of CC, has good roam potential, is a playmaker as opposed to a carrier, which is always going to just kind of lower, the power compared to just sort of, I suppose, raw carry damage type champions. Which is interesting, simply because Riot, generally speaking, I believe they do, like, it's actual official policy, but I'm not sure, I don't want to, like, make it sound like I'm speaking for Riot, but if I recall correctly, they tend to overtune champions slightly, as opposed to undertune champions at release, simply because no one knows how to use the champion, so to compensate for that, they're slightly stronger. When people start to figure out, then they tone the champion back a bit. Or when people start to discover crazy stuff with them, then they tone the champion back. Yeah, this champion doesn't really seem to have that. She's like good, but not insane, and consequently, people will probably, if I were to guess, say she's not very good for a while, and she's probably not. She might actually receive buffs after release, if anything, unless people discover a very specific, annoying way to use her. But we'll see. It's really hard to gauge. Like, sometimes some professional streamer or, super high famous guy will pick up on the champion because it just, like, it tickles their fancy. It's their playstyle. And they'll spam it. And then they'll show everyone exactly how to use it. And everyone picks up on it really quick. And there'll be this perception that it's super good and everyone will play it. But, that requires a very specific set of circumstances. And I've kind of talked about that general topic in the past before. But that's not the main point here. I suppose the point is that I don't feel she's super strong or super weak. If anything, maybe slightly on the weaker side, but simply that's just probably because she's new. I think it bears mentioning that I don't think she actually was changed all that much on the PBE. I think she was slightly nerfed, actually, and that was it, which I think sort of is more evidence for the fact that sort of my way of thinking here in regards to her balance is probably more or less correct. Like, Riot feels she's in a pretty good area, so they're just sort of leaving her alone. But yeah, anyway, I suppose to boil it all down, if you want a control, like, take the term control mage literally here. She's not a carry mage, she's a control mage. If you want to play that sort of role and be a playmaker for your team, if especially if you're sort of comfortable with the rough elo you're at, and then you feel you can work with the people around you very well. I think she's a pretty good pick. I feel actually, better as support, and just sort of leaving a damage mage to the mid, I find tends to be more successful. But if you want to take her mid, by all means, I would do that as well. But make sure you use her strength, which is not, trying to smother people with crazy damage, but getting some tankiness, some more utility. Roaming is definitely her strength. Obviously her ult is purely about roaming. It's not going to bring any kind of like immediate punch to a fight that's going to murder everyone. You got to be kind of careful with how you use it. Be clever with it. She's got really good wave clear. I probably should have mentioned that earlier. So you just kind of like murder the wave, and then you start doing your roaming kind of thing. So clearly those things, I think that's very intentional on Riot's part, that they work well together. That she, even her passive is about roaming specifically, because you can't use it in combat. But yeah, and I've been rambling for a really long time. I don't know how long this video's been. It's probably too long. But anyway, thanks for watching, and good luck with Taliyah as she does come out. Well, depending on when I release this video, like tomorrow or today or something like that. But yeah, have fun, guys, and I'll see you around. I'll probably actually be streaming her. Well, actually, will I even buy her? I don't know. I do enjoy her support. I'll probably end up getting her. Anyway, stay tuned to the channel, twitch.tv/pawns, in the description below. For general League gameplay and whatnot. Goodbye.